Now? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, Tuesday, April the 28th at 2 p.m. in council chambers. So I will first of all ask for an approval of the agenda, and there are no late items. No, thank you. We have Councillor Chong, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. And the adoption of the regular open minutes from April the 14th. Could we have a motion for that? Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you very much. So our first business today is a check presentation to the community service grant people who have got some money from round 2 of the community service and the RMI. So I'm going to ask Councillor Chung and Councillor Bennett to come up and present those.
Personally, on Osoyoos, music in the park.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Royal Canadian Legion.
Thank you. Thank you.
South Okanagan Chamber of Commerce. White Arts National Association. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Thank you. Have a good day.
Osoyoos Childcare. Hearts for Heroes. There you go. Okay. Address. Okanagan College. Yeah. Osoyoos Golf Club. Oh, you gotta check. Osoyoos Seniors Center Association. Take that one away. Osoyoos Lawn Bowling. Osoyoos Curling Club. And Osoyoos Actor Studio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
Photo outside.
Would you like to go outside and have a picture with the people that have received the checks? Councillor King, you going to join them? We'll just wait a minute for them to return. May I continue? I'm going? Okay, thank you. Congratulations to all of the people who received checks and from our committee. So well done. We hope you use the money wisely, any of them that are listening out there. We're next going to go to a public hearing. And I will start by reading the notes from the chair. So it's I'm going to call the meeting to order at 1:10 p.m. And there are public people in attendance, and are there any online? No. Okay, thank you. I will now read the statement of the chair. This is a public hearing pertaining to the Agricultural Land Reserve, ALR, block exclusion proposal. In accordance with Section 464 of the Local Government Act, this public hearing is convened to allow interested parties to make representation to council respecting the Agricultural Land Reserve block exclusion proposal. Every person present who believes that their interests are affected by the proposed application will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard. We will hear from staff on the matter, then receive public input, then council will deliberate the issue before the public hearing adjourns. We will now hear a presentation from our planner, Ms. Duong. Go ahead, please, Ms. Duong.
Thank you, Mayor, and I do just have a presentation. Perfect, thank you. So the intent of this presentation is to provide an overview of the block exclusion proposal, particularly for those individuals who may not have benefited from seeing previous council meetings where this information was presented. So I'll be going through the background as well as the proposal at hand, as well as some implications that should be considered. So according to the town's official community plan bylaw, approximately 326.7 hectares of land within the town's boundaries are located within the agricultural land reserve. Of these lands, 138.24 are actually designated for agriculture under the official community plan bylaw. With that in mind, a majority of lands within the ALR, within the town, are actually designated for purposes that are not agricultural in nature. So this includes predominantly small lot residential development. However, it does also include other commercial uses, tourist commercial uses, and other non-farm uses. So there are, of course, challenges with this, predominantly that the ALR status of these lands is actually not reflective of the town's direction that it sets out in zoning and OCP designations in terms of intended future land uses. This is particularly confusing when you're looking at this in the context of zoning, where a property owner may believe that they can purchase or develop a property based on what they're wanting to do, just because it's consistent with the property zoning. However, it's actually not permitted within the agricultural land reserve. So in some cases, property owners may not be aware of the ALR status of their properties, and then that comes as a surprise at the building permit stage or otherwise when they're seeking authorizations to do uses that are not agricultural in nature. So this ends up resulting in confusion, challenges, and also delays and unexpected delays at the time of town permitting processes. So of course, a way of dealing with this is to potentially exclude the lands from the ALR. So with respect to the statutory context, the legislative framework surrounding exclusions had changed substantially in 2020 after the passing of Bill 15/2019, which ended up amending the Agricultural Land Commission Act, and that removed the ability for private property owners to apply to the Agricultural Land Commission for the exclusion of their properties from the ALR. So because of this, exclusion applications can now only be submitted by the province, First Nation, or local governments or prescribed bodies. So importantly, and in the context of this project, local governments can submit an application to the Agricultural Land Commission to exclude privately owned lands within their jurisdiction. And now where an applicant proposes to exclude lands from the ALR, they are required to provide notice of the application and also notify and hold a public hearing on the matter, which is the purpose of this hearing today. So with all of this in mind, on December 9th, 2025, staff had presented a proposal to council to exclude a number of properties throughout the town from the ALR. And in response, council resolved to initiate an application to the Agricultural Land Commission to exclude 62 non-agricultural parcels from the ALR and schedule a public hearing for April 28th, 2026. But please note that while the original resolution speaks to 62 parcels, 2 entries on that original list did involve 2 parts of the same property, and that has been corrected in the attachment to the corresponding council report. Additionally, on March 24th, 2026, council had further resolved to include in the exclusion proposal 7 additional parcels along Wren Place and 97th Street, which were unintentionally excluded from the original request, as well as approximately 0.9 hectare portion of the property at 9425 87th Street following a request from the property owner. And as detailed in the corresponding staff report, this proposed application was notified in several different ways. This includes, but is not limited to, the creation of a project webpage with information about the proposal, newspaper advertisements in the 2 weeks leading up to this hearing, the posting of notification signs, e-news notification of the hearing, as well as letters being distributed to affected property owners on January 27th, 2026, following the original December council resolution, as well as on March 25th, 2026, following the March 24th council resolution to those additional parcel owners. An additional letter was sent in March to owners of properties which were understood to be currently receiving an ALR tax, school tax exemption. So the subject properties were largely identified as part of this project using 2 criteria, being firstly, ALR lands that have been designated for non-agricultural land uses under the town's OCP bylaw, and or ALR lands which have historically and currently not been used for agricultural purposes. And as mentioned, 1 property was included following a request from a property owner to be included in that exclusion proposal. So in total, this represents approximately 178.11 hectares of land. And the next several slides will actually provide an overview of the lands being proposed for exclusion. However, I do want to point out that this is just being summarized for brevity as part of the presentation, and a detailed list is available as part of the council report. So just starting off, at the northwest corner of town, exclusion candidates include the Osoyoos Airport property and surrounding Crown Environmental Conservation lands that contain the canal walkway. Also on the western side of town, exclusion candidates include an auto yard on Meadowlark Drive, lands which largely comprise the Osoyoos Golf Club, a portion of the West Bench Complex parking lot, as well as the lands south of the Osoyoos Secondary School property, which contained the municipal bladders associated with sewage lagoons. Further south, as you go past Desert Park, exclusion candidates include Crown lands within the West Bench, which are intended for environmental conservation purposes. Back at the north end of town, at the intersection of Highway 97 and Highway 3, candidates include properties containing the Co-op gas station, the Osoyoos Visitor Center and the associated parking area, as well as tourist accommodations and a restaurant on the south side of Highway 3, being the West Ridge Motor Inn and the Sunridge Restaurant. As you move further south along Highway 97 or 97th Street, the properties include a bowling alley and fitness center, low-density residential development, a manufactured home park, and tourist accommodations, being the Boundary Motel. Further south, as you go past the Osoyoos Fire Hall, additional candidates include properties containing low-density residential development along Wren Place and 97th Street, as well as the Osoyoos Baptist Church property on 97th Street. Additionally, at 32nd Street, along the town's southern border with the regional district, it is proposed to exclude a cluster of low-density residential development. And back on the north end of town, at 87th Street, that is where the 0.9 hectare portion of a larger agricultural property is being proposed for exclusion. On the east side of town, properties proposed for exclusion include a Fortis BC property on Cottonwood Drive, as well as a number of low-density residential lots on Cottonwood Drive, Maple Drive, and Cedar Lane. Along Lakeshore Drive, potential exclusion candidates include a cluster of low-density residential lots, as well as their associated lakefronts, as well as the lakefront area that's across from lakeside cellars. Along the eastern stretch of Lakeshore Drive, there are a number of tourist commercial properties identified for exclusion, including the Lakeshore Villas Resort residential property, the vacant lot to the north, and also a low-density residential lot on 44th Avenue. And then continuing further south, exclusion candidates include a number of low-density residential lots along the western side of Lakeshore Drive. And lastly, the southern end of town also includes a campground, being the Oasis RV Park, another resort residential lot being Las Ventanas al Paraíso, and additional low-density residential lots. So I think the big question here is what happens if the commission approves this exclusion? So I think one of the biggest impacts would be if the exclusion is successful and the properties are removed from the ALR, the properties that are currently subject to restrictions under the ALC Act and its regulations would no longer be subject to those restrictions. And in this regard, this would remove the requirement for these property owners to apply for and obtain approvals from the Agricultural Land Commission to undertake non-farm uses on their property or subdivide. It's also important to note, however, that this project does not propose any zoning amendments, and the subject properties would still remain subject to the applicable zoning regulations should the exclusion be successful. Additionally, since the initiation of this project, we have received a number of queries with respect to property taxation. It's our understanding that the primary taxation impacts relate to eligibility for school tax exemptions. These types of taxes are charged as part of every British Columbia property owner's annual property taxes, unless you're exempt, with the purpose of paying to share in the cost of providing education within the province. These types of taxes are collected by municipalities as part of annual property taxes on behalf of the province, and the province communicates to municipalities the amount to collect. Under Section 130 of the School Act, there are exemptions for taxations for properties which are classified as a farm, and for those properties within the ALR that are subject to restrictions under the ALC Act and are vacant and unused or are used for a farm or residential purpose. Now, specifically, 50% of the assessed value of a parcel of land is exempt from school taxes where they meet prescribed criteria. However, this exemption does not apply to municipal taxes. In reviewing the properties identified for exclusion, it was noted that 8 of the properties currently receive the exemption and currently have farm status and would therefore become ineligible if the exclusion is successful. These affected property owners were notified via a letter, as mentioned previously, and directed to BC Assessment so as to better understand the specific implications with respect to their properties. Now, with respect to next steps, so after this public hearing, Council will consider whether to submit the application to the Agricultural Land Commission. And if Council is supportive of that, staff would then submit the application and work with the Commission staff to progress that application. And that includes attending exclusion meetings, providing additional information as necessary, etc. And lastly, if the application is approved, conditions may need to be met prior to the actual approval being actioned. So there might be conditions required to actually exclude those lands. It should be noted, however, if Council does direct staff to submit this application to the ALC, we are unsure about how long the process will take. While the Commission does release most of their decisions within 60 to 90 days, this timeline is contingent on meeting requirements, additional information requests, and staff capacity. We do recognize that this application, particularly of a scale this size, it's very uncommon, and that may impact overall processing times. In addition, the Commission has recently announced staffing reductions which may also delay processing timelines. So with this in mind, it should be noted that firstly, approval is not guaranteed by the Commission. And secondly, in the meantime, while this application is being processed, if it does get submitted, these properties will remain in the ALR and will therefore remain subject to provisions of the ALC Act and regulations. And just as a final flag, as this may impact some owners, some of the subject properties may meet criteria under the ALC Act to be considered exceptions to the use regulations that are stipulated under the Act. Specifically, Section 23 sub 1 of the ALC Act indicates that restrictions on the use of ALR land do not apply to land that on December 21st, 72 was by separate certificate of title less than 2 acres in area. This exception only pertains to restrictions on land use, and therefore the restrictions on subdivision would still apply. With this in mind, property owners who think that they meet this criteria may wish to confirm or obtain confirmation of their exception status with the Agricultural Land Commission separately. And with that, that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duong. That was very helpful. So we will now receive input on the public hearing matter. Written representations have been received from today, an email dated April the 28th, 2026 from Osoyoos RV Resort concerns about exclusion. I will now call on those who have registered to speak, and I'm not sure whether anybody has signed on the form. Nobody has. All right, so instead of doing that, I'll just read this first. If you do wish to speak, you raise your hand and you will come to the microphone, and please start by stating your name and address, and you will be provided 5 minutes to speak. Each speaker may only speak once. If speakers discuss matters that do not pertain to the proposed application to the agricultural land reserve, they will be interrupted and asked to restrict their comments to this application only. We ask that others in attendance be respectful of proper meeting conduct by not applauding or speaking out of turn. I will start with those in person, and I don't believe we have anyone online. So if we do, we'll add those after. So I'm going to ask if there is anyone who wishes to speak on the proposed application to the ALC, Agricultural Land Commission. Thank you. Can you press the button to turn on?
Sure.
Okay,
My name is Keith Cools and I live at 2418 Lakeshore Drive. My first question, I guess, is addressed to Ms. Duong.
Excuse me. You're not asking questions today. You are just presenting today. There will be no questions answered. This is a public hearing for you to give input. That's all. I'm sorry. If you do have questions at a further time, then absolutely you can contact the planner or or as Ms. Duong said, the ALC. This is just to give your information if you want, or whether you are in agreement with the application to the ALC or not. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come and speak to this application? Please come up to the microphone.
My name is Roger K. Boll and I represent the Oasis RV Resort. We did submit our letter with the details concerning our concerns. We oppose the town's proposal. We believe that our existing zoning and usage aligns closely with the ALC mandate, and that campgrounds can and are used and approved by the Agricultural Land Commission throughout the province. That being said, I believe all our details are within the letter that we submitted, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And thank you for signing in. While we're waiting, is there anyone else who would like to come and make representation on this application? Thank you. For a second time. Is there, okay, we have somebody else.
Anita Hendricks of 5227 Lakeshore Drive. I guess I can't ask a question. It's of my opinion and most of my neighbors who are in our little 5 property area that we would like to not opt out of the ALR because we do receive, which we weren't aware of until this, the exemption for the tax, for the school tax, and the implications of that because of our very large increase in assessments in the last few years means that our taxes would go up by what I calculated about $1,000. So it's a financial burden to us, and I really don't see any benefit to us. We built a shop, we put an addition on our house. We didn't have any problem getting any permits, and we don't plan on doing any more building. So I don't really think it's going to benefit us in the future.
Thank you very much. I'll ask again, is there anyone else who would like to come and speak to this application? No, for a second time, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this application? And for a third time, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this application? So, thank you. We have heard from the speakers. The speakers list is now closed. And I will ask staff whether there's anything that you wish to respond to at this time or any new information. Ms. Duong?
No further information at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, is there anyone on council who has a question of staff or, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor
Thank you,
King.
Madam Mayor. I guess this is Mr. Young. Can some of the Osoyoos opt in and some opt out?
It would be within council's discretion as to whether to exclude certain properties from the proposal when they are making their determination as to whether to submit the application to the commission.
Thank you.
Huh?
I think I asked this last time, but for further clarification, how was it that these properties were able to be in their current form under ALR, basically classification? Because as we know, the ALC they're pretty strong guardians of agriculture land.
So in some cases, as I mentioned kind of right up towards the end of my presentation, there are circumstances where properties would have been confirmed exceptions to the ALC Act and may have been developed with that in mind. Other circumstances include a number of properties that would have been developed prior to the establishment of the ALR, so they would have been continuing their non-conforming use rights under the Act. And the third category just involves properties that I'm not necessarily aware of how exactly they were developed. In some cases, they may have approvals from the commission for specific uses. So you'd have to look at things at each property on a site-by-site basis.
Definitely is very confusing, and that's why we have these meetings. I could also say to people who are listening to this that you will need to follow what happens next, and we will have to be following what happens next as well, and we will certainly, there will be information provided as things go on. But right now, I'm just going to say that this public hearing is now adjourned. Did you have another question? Go ahead,
I
Councillor
always
King.
got questions. I guess the concern is here, we don't make the final decision. This goes to the provincial government. But again, I heard two people kind of speaking against this. So I would like to really take them out of this proposal, is my thought.
I'm thinking that this might have to come to a further meeting of council. I don't think it can be decided right now. This is just the hearing. So council, go ahead.
Just as also again further clarification with campground usage, my understanding of the ALR use regulation is there is a stipulation for agritourism. But are campgrounds an accepted use by the ALR's lens?
So you've pointed out the agritourism accommodation allowances. So those, yes, outright permitted as long as they're consistent with the ALC's regulations as it pertains to agritourism accommodations. Campgrounds are not an outright permitted use within the ALR and typically require ALC approval.
Councillor Bennett has a question.
Yes, I'm just a little concerned about if the tax rate can go up that much higher on with $1,000 as quoted. I'd like to see us find out more information of who's gonna get taxed a lot more and who isn't, and how that's gonna actually affect each of the property owners, because sounds like could be some discrimination between some property owners and not some property owners, which doesn't seem fair.
Thank you, Richard, and through you to either Mr. Wong or Mr. Clark. Just to clarify on the on that financial component, those are exclusions that have been provided to those properties that isn't provided to other properties, any regular property in the town of Osoyoos. So this is a benefit normally to a property that is functioning in either a farm status capacity or agriculture capacity that is in fact receiving the benefit of such without producing in an agriculture's manner, I guess. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So they're the outliers of those receiving the financial benefit currently from the LR are benefiting from something that the rest of the community is in fact paying into.
Correct.
Thank you.
So, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. Council members will not speak to the public further on this matter until it has been considered at a convened public meeting of council. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who is attended today's public hearing. So we will now go on to the Agricultural Land Reserve Commission proposal, and we have an administrative recommendation. And the recommendation is that the administration submit an application to the Agricultural Land Commission for the exclusion of approximately 178.11 hectares of land from the Agricultural Land Reserve. So now, council, we will need to decide whether we wish to do that recommendation or something different. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this? Councillor King?
Yeah, thank you. I don't support moving this forward. As you mentioned, I think we should have an open public meeting with a little bit more information on certain properties that might want to be excluded at a public meeting.
Go ahead.
And correct me if I'm wrong, if we do move forward with these exclusions, the application is submitted to the ALR, to the ALC, by which they have the final say as to whether these properties are indeed appropriate to the ALC regulations or they are not. So in the case of the properties where they no longer suit the agricultural designation, then the exclusion would be successful for those properties. With that said, in that designation, it means that they deem that these properties should not have the ability to be exempted from certain taxation and the benefits that are included with agricultural land designation. Is that fairly correct?
So a bit challenging to speak on behalf of the commission. Really, the ALR school tax exemption, I would argue, is separate from the ALC's mandate in that the exemption generally, as I understand it, applies to typically farmland with the intent to incentivize properties to be maintained as farmland. So it's generally intended to benefit farmers. So just two separate issues with the ALC's mandate versus taxation intent.
So as a follow-up, the properties which are now in a form which do not produce produce or serve an agricultural purpose should not then be benefiting from this tax exemption.
Yes, it can be argued that that's the case.
So we can either use this recommendation or another one today, or we can postpone this and ask staff for more information before we make a decision. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I go along with Councillor King. I think that we need some more information.
So
to this
you're
point.
making a motion, or
I think
are
Jim did.
I'll make a motion. We don't move forward with this today.
and we asked
For
staff
more
to bring it,
information from staff.
and that's what you're
Okay.
seconding? Is there Mrs. Colson?
Could I just ask for clarification on exactly what kind of extra information, just so we return to council with specifically what councillors Bennett and King are looking for?
Councillor Bennett?
Yeah, I would like to know more about these 5 properties, and basically what the actual exemption is and how it all works. And then also like at the RV resort, is that how much that's gonna affect them, or, because there's totally separate property setup because they're an association, however it works. It's, I don't know if it's one piece of property, the ALR, or does that mean in the ALR you're applying for 80 if there's 80 properties within that development? Or are we applying for 80 exemptions, or are we applying for one for all of them? So there's quite a few questions.
Did that help, Mrs. Colson? Ms. Duong, would that make sense to have a different, perhaps ask you to come back to a council meeting sometime with specific questions on how we could proceed?
Yes, so I'm happy to provide any additional information that I can. I do just want to flag for council's attention that the provision of additional information following the public hearing trigger the need for another public hearing to occur, just so we're aware.
You're right, yes. If there's new information, then it has to come back. Yes, Councillor
I
King.
guess I go back to my first comment. Can we exclude a couple of these and move the rest of them forward?
Yes, you can choose to exclude certain properties from this proposal. Council can also consider potentially initiating an exclusion application for the other properties at a future date, should they choose to do so.
Well, I could support doing that because we did hear from 2 people. I mean, I can see a bowling alley commercial. It's definitely not agriculture, and a few stores and things that are in the LR that shouldn't be. And who knows what happened 30, 40 years ago. So again, I don't want to waste everybody's staff time, so I could move this forward, but I'd like to take a few of them out.
Can I just add, I think we may not know if there are other people who didn't know about this and might want to be excluded as well. So I would hate to just say 2 wish to be excluded without finding out, and then perhaps assuming the rest of them are okay with it. So perhaps we could have another.
I don't think we need another meeting for this personally. I think they had a lot of public information was sent out. We had it in the newspaper, I believe, a couple of times. The people that are interested are actually here today speaking. So again, I'll just make the motion I said. I'd like to see it move forward, but take the couple exempt out.
I'm going to ask Councillor Bennett and then Councillor Chong to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's a lot more into Mr. King, Councillor King, because there's a group of people here and they've said they don't want to be part of it. There's another group of 5, so we're not just talking 2 people. It's affecting quite a few people.
Yeah,
It's not, but they're not all here.
That's my concern, that there may be other people and we can't make a decision on their behalf, apparently. But I think if we had another meeting, we would perhaps bring up these things. Councillor Chong, did you have something?
Yes, thank you. The 2 concerned parties with 2615, zone CT2 and TC with our OCP. You know, 0.46 is 2801, which is also zone CT2 and TC, but they didn't submit anything. So if we exclude 2615 in Lakeshore Drive, how's that fair to 2801 Lakeshore Drive? And same thing with the second party who spoke, I believe they're zoned RS1 and then designated as LR, low density residential or OCP. And there are multiple properties on this list that are exact same zoning. So how is it fair to those properties that we exclude this one, but not the others? So my question is like, where is your deciding line as to these exclusions when all of these properties no longer fit the actual designation criteria of the ALR? They're not farmland.
I guess I go back to my same comment. If they were interested, they would have been here. I got no problem going through the process again. It'll be a month from now. We'll go through the same thing. And if they show up, they can talk. I got no problem. But I don't think we need to waste staff's time.
So we have a motion on the floor, I believe. Could you please read me that motion? Is it Mrs. Robinson or Mrs. Coulson?
I believe what Councillor King was suggesting
Sorry,
is
thank
that
you.
we do go with the recommendation that administration submit an application to the ALC for the exclusion of approximately 178.11 hectares of land from the ALR, excluding 2615 Lakeshore and 5227 Lakeshore. Is that correct?
Is that the motion?
That's not what I seconded. at all.
Okay, is there a seconder? Sorry, we're not asking for people from the audience right now, thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Hearing none, that motion fails. Someone have another motion? Councillor Chung.
I move the recommended motion.
That all the properties be retaken out. Is there a seconder for that? No, so that one fails. We got a third motion. Have you got one? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Richard, and maybe the assistance of Director Coulson. Move that we just defer this back to committee of the whole for further consideration, and that gives an opportunity for those who actually do want to participate in having themselves excluded from the blanket proposal to make submission. Because as we've seen here today, the two requests have come at the final hour. Well, sorry, Oasis came in at 7:59 a.m. this morning, and the other one was made notification day and has indicated, I believe, additional properties in their area that I think those owners should have the opportunity, if they wish to do so, to request formally to be excluded.
So are you making that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and it's seconded by Councillor King. I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. So that will be considered again. Thank you all for coming. And we will move on to staff reports. The Marina Management Services intent to lease. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before council, administration is bringing the Desert Sunrise Marina for final approval. So a little bit of background. The RFP closed on March the 27th. We did recommend Sun West Investment Corporation, and ads were placed in the local paper April the 16th and 23rd on the public notice posting board and on the town website for 2 consecutive weeks. And we didn't receive any comments or concerns. So the options before council is that council authorizes and approves the signatories to lease the property at Desert Sunrise Marina located in the town of Osoyoos. And 2, SunWest Investment Corporation, Wake Pilot Wakeboarding for a 3-year term at a rate of $10,500 for 2026, $10,750 for 2027, and $11,000 for 2028. Second option, that council directs administration to bring changes back at a later meeting, or that council does not approve the lease at this time. In terms of implications, having an ambassador on site would be very beneficial. Organizational, just working with the operator and making sure things work and fan out as they should. The 3-year total is $33,250. The very first day as part of the lease agreement would be May 15th. And in terms of sustainability, the proper use of the marina is enhanced when somebody is on site to protect our powering up of boats. So the recommendation before council is to move forward with the Desert Sunrise Marina as presented earlier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move option number one. And I think it's really important part about having people down there, because last year we lost, I don't know how many life jackets were stolen when nobody was there. So I think it's important to have somebody there as a big part of this lease. Thank you.
Second.
You're seconding it? Thank you. And this is actually for final approval.
Yes, that's correct.
That's what it says. So all in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. And we will now look at the cemetery review final report. Oh,
Thank you, Your Worship. The council was provided with a draft copy of the cemetery review final report and a presentation of the project findings at the April 14th Committee of the Whole meeting, and administration is now looking for council's approval of the actual report. Just to recap, the Lakeview Cemetery report provides a 25-year outlook and includes numerous recommendations, two of which have already been actioned. That is that a new columbarium has been included in the 2026 capital budget, and with council's approval, it will be ordered right away. And enhancements were made to financial tracking and reporting from the time we received feedback from the consultants. Other recommendations that will be implemented in 2026 are the updating of the cemetery bylaw, introducing 2026 price increases and a non-resident premium, the launching of the tree management strategy, and a recommendation for additional perpetual care fund contributions will be included in the 2027 operating budget proposal to council. So the recommendation for council today is to adopt the Lakeview Cemetery Review's final report.
thank you very much. And it's a very comprehensive report, and I like all the graphs and the pictures in it. Thank you very much. Moved. Councillor Chung is seconding that. All in favor? Thank you very much. We will now look at Osoyoos tax rates bylaw number 1409. Mrs. Keith.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you is the proposed tax rate bylaw for consideration for first through 3 readings. Majority of the items presented in the first part, which is the municipal policing, general debt, fire protection, and fire hall debt, have already been presented and approved through our 5-year plan in January. At this stage, what we're doing is just taking the approved revenue amounts and working it backwards to develop a rate based on BC assessment revised values, which were presented in April. Below that is our third-party collection, I call it, which is School, Hospital, Regional District, Okanagan Library, BC Assessment, and Municipal Finance Authority. Again, these values are presented to us, and we work again back through the assessed values to develop the rate. We don't really have a say in what those amounts are. And that's my report. I do provide a little breakdown on based on the single family home assessment and what those rates would work out to be. And you can see the difference between 2026 and 2025 is about for $226 difference, which works out to be like an $18.88 per month variance or increase.
Thank you very much. Appreciate having all this information first. Did you have a question?
I'm just going to move option 1.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Poderica. Are there any questions about this? Thank you. Could we, I will call the question. All in favor? Oh, first, second, and third reading. That's what we're doing.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor? Thank you very much. And now the parcel tax, museum parcel tax amendment bylaw. Mrs. Keith.
Continue on what was presented in the last council. We did receive 1 through 3 readings. Today we're presenting the bylaw for adoption. The parcel tax was developed back in 2013 to enable the purchase of museum property located at 8702 Main Street. The amount owing is given to us by the regional district, and that rate is set based on the number of parcels. So we have, we're proposing an increase from $17.40 to $17.63.
Thank you. Could we, what would the recommended motion is that the parcel tax amendment bylaw number 1300.10 be adopted. First, second, all in favor. Thank you. And the municipal ticket information amendment bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. So today, the Municipal Ticket Information Amendment Bylaw 127926 and Bylaw Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw 1392.02 are in front of council for consideration of adoption. So these bylaws were brought to council at the April 14th meeting with updates for bylaw to be able to ticket appropriately with the new animal care and control bylaw, parks amendments that we have made with adding a no glassware on the beach. And so today we're considering adoption.
And this one is just for number 1279.26 and 1392, right? We have a separate one
Yes.
for the animal care.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. Thank you.
Okay, so that's first, second, and third were moved on the April
Yeah,
14th.
you mentioned 1392, but on mine it says 1393. So I just want.
That's on the second, that's on page 266. This is page 211, and there's the two bylaws, the municipal ticket information and the bylaw notice enforcement information. That's what it shows on mine, 1279 and 1392. Are you in the,
Well, I got
Did he jump?
1393.
I have that, but starting on page 266.
I have 260.
Oh,
but
sorry.
Each one
That's
is
what it shows
individual.
here. Okay, so could we go back to these? We got it? Does everybody else know what we're talking about?
Yeah, no, it's right there.
Okay, we're good?
The option is right, but in the information, I think it's wrong.
Okay. So do we have a move to adopt this, please?
Move.
These two. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Chung. All in favor? Thank you. Now we'll go to Animal Care and Control Bylaw, which is 1393.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah.
So this bylaw was rewritten and brought to council in March. As we then went for first 3 readings, took a pause. We've updated all the municipal ticketing and bylaw enforcement so that everything aligns now. And now we'd like to bring the animal care and control bylaw for adoption.
Thank you. So it was first, second, third reading on March 10th, so it was a while back. So we're looking to have this bylaw adopted today. Is there someone who would like to make that motion? Councillor Poderica, Councillor Chung, all in favor? Thank you very much. And we will now go to the Parks and Community Facilities Amendment Bylaw, number 1278.01.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this bylaw again was amended by council's direction to prohibit glassware in the park. And along with that, we would like to have this amendment adopted so that we can follow, bylaw can now start educating those in the parks who may have glass or be bringing glassware to any event.
Thank you. So it was read a first, second, and third time on April the 14th. So we're looking for adoption today.
Option 1.
Thank you. Councillor Chong, seconding, all in favor. Thank you. And the next item is a council meeting report. that the expenses for Councillor Bennett in the amount of $400 be approved when he attended MIABC in Vancouver. Could I have a motion for that, please? Councillor Chong, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you very much. So we will go back to the acting CAO report. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm pleased to present this on behalf of the CAO. In the last 2 weeks in community services, Meadowlark Playground request for proposal has been posted and it closes on April 30th. RSVPs and nominations have started to come in for the annual Volunteer Appreciation Luncheon on May 29th. Just a reminder that the Sun Bowl Arena closes for the season on May the 4th and that all public washrooms are now open. In the corporate and planning area, Bylaw continues to deal with a number of parking complaints and warning tickets for dogs off leash. Facebook top 3 posts that we had in the last 2 weeks were regarding Desert Sunrise Marina lease, stage 2 watering restrictions, and the ALR public hearing. And it was a total of about 20,000 sort of hits on Facebook looking at those posts. The website views since the last meeting is over 10,000. The e-scooter survey received 224 responses and the results are on that webpage. And we noted significant concern about safety in the feedback. And so we wanted to say that we did work very closely with our e-scooter business in town to make sure that they had a very rigorous process of informing the people renting the e-scooters about safety and wearing their helmets and where they were allowed to go and not go. So we kind of amped up the education on that in response to the feedback. Recreation programming survey is live right now and has already had about 130 responses. So we encourage people to take that survey as well. In the planning area, 6 new business licenses have been issued. She Shines Cleaning Services, IRK General Contracting, Vintage Vibes Okanagan, which is a short-term rental, Welcome Bags, which is a business preparing gift baskets, $1 Million View, another short-term rental, and Velvet Hammer Permanent Makeup. Finally, for the planning area, staff is preparing 2 applications that will be considered by the Board of Variance on May the 4th. In the financial services area, audit work is now complete and the final report will be received shortly. Q2 utilities billing is being prepared and will go out mid-May. And the finance team is preparing for tax season and the notices will be issued mid-May. In the fire department, fire administration met with representatives from Osoyoos High School to discuss details of our annual work program that is currently available for grade 11 and 12 students. The program allows students to experience firefighter training and gain skills which will aid them should they pursue a career in firefighting. Emergency Preparedness Week runs May 3rd to 9th. This year's theme is In It Together, recognizing that individual readiness and community resilience are strengthened when we look out for one another. Throughout this week, information will be provided for residents and social media, as well as links to online resources and activities. And finally, in operational services, the work continues on the 89th Street and Quail Place reconstruction capital projects. The boat launch in the Osoyoos Marina opened on April 20th, and users have been cautioned regarding the debris that remains there. And a monitoring and adjusting of additives for odor mitigation at the sewer lagoons is ongoing. That's my report.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Coulson. Could I please have a motion that the CAO report be received for information? Councillor King, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. We'll now look at council reports. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Attended the Accessibility and Age-Friendly Committee meeting. And the main discussion there, and hopefully Director Davis will be bringing it forward in the next few weeks about sidewalks. We seem to have a major concern around cracks and people with disabilities being able to get around our sidewalks. And also last Friday, attending the open house for healthcare workers in Oliver, along with the mayor for the ribbon cutting. A great initiative, I think, was driven by the mayor of Oliver to start with, but with all his partners coming together They're great to see. We got facilities now for some care workers.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bennett.
Nothing new to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chong.
Thank you. Relatively quiet. April 18th, MC the Osoyoos Childcare Center fundraiser. I don't have the final tally, but I think we beat last year with a little over 15. Oh, no, actually, it was 13,121. I just got the message. And that all goes entirely to the childcare center. And they have multiple projects, including a new outdoor play structure that for their IT program, and other initiatives as well. So that was really fun, and thank you for everyone who attended and donated money. They are a registered charity as well, so always open to donations, and you will receive a tax receipt. And then the past weekend, competed in the Rattlesnake Open with the Seas Golf Club. 116 players. This is the first time we're bringing back the Rattlesnake Open since COVID kind of shut everything down. So we're hoping to build that tournament back to its former glory. So that concludes my report.
Good, thank you. Councillor Poderica.
Thank you, Your Worship. April 18th, attended the Oyster Gala. That's part of the Osoyoos Oyster Festival. Great event. They had two sellout events, Friday at the golf course and Saturday at Wana Beach. There's thanks to those venues for hosting. Really good opportunity. Really good, greatly benefited obviously from RMI funding. I'd say probably 90% of the room there was outside visitors coming to town for the weekend there. So accommodations, I know talking with a couple of hotel operators, they were, one of them I believe had 2 rooms left for that weekend. So did fairly well. And I even actually had some oysters, which is something I haven't done in about 14 years, and most are shocked by that. So, and then back to back 2 weeks meetings with Osoyoos with their board. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. So at our last regional district meeting, we did quite a lot of talking about Fortis and the PSPS, which is the Public Service Public Safety, I believe, concerns about shutting off the energy supply to various places in the Okanagan and the Similkameen when they feel that there is a need to do this. This would be Fortis. And it was talked about at some length at the regional district table. And because we had a notification from Fortis that there was a possibility that parts of Osoyoos, parts of Area A, and parts of the OIB in our surrounding area could be affected. I made a motion, and we all agreed at the regional district that we would send a letter to Fortis saying that we were quite concerned about how this would affect all of us in the regional district. So it was not just sent for certain areas, because parts of Oliver weren't included, parts of Osoyoos weren't. So it's on the entire regional district has sent a letter to Fortis and to the Utilities Commission asking for more information and realizing that we all had concerns about it. When last weekend, Councillor King and I were at the Housing for Healthcare opening, and Fortis was there, and we had a chat with them at the time and stated our concerns. And they are going to meet us. They have a table at Silga, which is where we're going this week, in Revelstoke. And we have a meeting with Fortis to discuss this further. So we're perfectly all right with bringing those kinds of things up again. On April the 22nd, I had 2 meetings. One of them was with the EMCR, Emergency Management Climate Readiness. And they were talking about drought measures and EOCs, Emergency Operations Centers. They looked at weather reports, climate change, BC River forecast, and that type of thing. It was quite interesting, although it was totally expected because it's exactly what we've been hearing for quite a while. And then I was on the International Osoyoos Lake Board of Control. And it was the semi-annual meeting. It was held in Washington, D.C. And we had quite a conversation. Several people were there at the table with all of the engineers and the people who manage it, and then the Board of Control from Osoyoos. There were a couple of people there from that board, but some of us were just online. And I spoke and talked about the lake levels. That was one of our big concerns, of course, the lake levels on Osoyoos Lake. And as we know, they were down at 909 feet above sea level, measured at the Zozel Dam a month ago, and they have now risen about 3 feet. So we're up to almost 912, yeah, close to there, I think it is. I forgot what it was today. I looked, but I don't remember. 911.8. Okay. So we are happy that that's happened. There was a discussion about how did this happen, that the level got down so low that it caused that our marina to be closed. And so there was quite a discussion about that, and they believe part of it had to do with the dam in Penticton. Has the person who had, Sean Reimer, who had managed the dam for many, many years, retired in January, February, and there's a new person that has taken over, very well qualified, but doesn't have the past history. And in the person who looked after the Zozel Dam south of Oroville has somebody who is new there, and fairly new, been there for a year or two, doesn't have the past history, they don't think. So it was suggested to the board at the meeting, the IJC, that it's possible that there just wasn't enough communication back and forth about how this happened and what they could do. And on top of that, because the Okanagan is at a low level, our rivers and our lakes, all of the lakes in our area, because of drought. But in fact, the Similkameen River has a higher flow. So we're at 58% of normal down here. Over in Princeton and around there, it's 88%. So quite a bit different. And looking at all of those things and working together and everybody talking together and coming up with ideas, the lake level has come up, and not that it's going to stay there forever, but we're happy to see it the way it is, because it certainly makes it easier to protect our marinas, to protect our infrastructure. So we have meetings with the IJC and the Board of Control about once a month, sometimes more often than that now. So I will certainly report back when I hear some other information. And there were about 50 people at the opening of the Housing for Healthcare. Councillor King and I were there. A lot of other people from Interior Health. Martin Johansson, the mayor, was the sort of the MC. Fortis spoke because they were there, because they'd provided the information and a whole new setup to provide power on the property. And then they had all these people who had papers and were asked to speak. And then Cheryl King said, "Sue, you need to." And so Martin said, Sue, would you like to speak? So I did. And I just said how important it was for all of us in the South Okanagan to work together because we all support the hospital and we support the healthcare workers that come to our communities. And it was a great addition. And Ian Lindsay spoke as well about the fact that the Hospital Foundation has been raising money to aid this. And yesterday it was Smile Cookie Day from Tim Hortons. So I went and bought a bunch of Smile cookies and took it around to town staff. Sorry, council, if you'd been here, I had some for you too, but you didn't have a meeting. Anyway, and volunteer fair was at the museum on the 25th, and it was very nicely. There were a lot of people there that looked at all of the volunteer activities that are in town, and some in Oliver, some in Osoyoos, and it was a very nice event. And I just want to remind people that the volunteer luncheon is on the 29th of May, and all of the people who have volunteer groups in town have been sent notification, and they're keeping a list, and that looks like a good event. So that's all that I had on my report, and I will now turn this over to the in-camera part that pursuant to section 91 of the community charter, part of the council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to one or more of the following. Section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations. Section 91G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. 91I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor